Okay, so we have opened up our new model that we are going to create a reverse lock foot joints and controls for. As you can see, it's just a little boy character, and I already have his basic legs set up in terms of joints. So I'm going to go into my right side view so I can see this a little bit better. I'm also going to turn off the visibility over here in my layers of my model so that I can just kind of pay attention to my reverse lock. Actually, just kidding, I'm going to turn my model back on because the first joint I'm going to be creating is my heel joint. I'm going to actually make my character, put my character in reference mode. And I'm going up to my shelf here and I'm going to go to my create joint tool and I'm going to press V to snap. And then I'm going to go into perspective view so I can kind of see what is going on here. I'm also going to press enter once I have created my joint. And I'm just going to snap it to a part of the heel that's close to center and then move it to center. Now the reason why we want this centered to the back of the heel is this is where the heel control is actually going to rotate up or rotate around and go around like that. Okay, so the next thing that I am going to do is name my joint. So this is going to be RL for reverse lock underscore L underscore heel 01. All right, now I think we can put our character back in template mode and make it invisible. So this is my joint. I'm also going to make my joint bigger. So I'm going to go to radius here and make it 1. So it's pretty big, but I want to be able to distinguish my reverse lock joints from my regular foot joints. All right, so I'm going to duplicate the joint, Control D. Let's bring up my outliner so we can kind of see what's going on. And I'm going to press V and snap it to the toe tip. And I'm going to name this RL for reverse lock underscore L for left underscore toe 1. So this is my toe joint. All right, so the next thing I am going to do is duplicate this again. Control D to duplicate. Make sure you press W for the move tool and then press down on V and snap this to the ball joint. So I'm going to call this RL underscore L underscore ball 01. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to hit Control D one more time and press V to snap that to my foot or ankle joint. So we're going to be calling this, actually, what did I name this? I want them to be in conjunction with one another. I misspelled ankle. Let's name it foot. And let's go over here and rename this one as well. All right, so this is going to be my reverse lock underscore L underscore foot 01. So we really want all of our naming conventions to be set, and we also want to make sure they're consistent so it'll make constraining easier later on. All right, so the next thing we want to do is orient these joints. So let's go over here and make our local rotation axes visible. So I'm going to press LRA on my shelf. And remember that's also under display, transform display, local rotation axis. So you can find it there as well. So now I can see my local rotation axes, kind of. If I click off of them, we can see them a little bit better. All right, so we're going to be using some constraints to actually orient these properly. So the first thing we're going to do is select our bind foot joint. So that's where the joint at the ankle. And then we are going to shift select our reverse lock ball joint. We're going to go to our rigging menu. And we're going to go to constrain orient options box. Let's reset the settings and click add. And as you can see here, when we did that, we have repositioned the local rotation axes of our reverse lock ball joint. But we got to do some things. We got to clean this up. So I'm going to go over to my attribute editor here so I can see things a little clearer. I'm also going to delete this constraint. So we just used this constraint to orient the ball joint correctly. So what we are going to do is we're going to copy the rotation values, because we never want rotation values in our joints. And then we are going to paste them down under joint orient. So Control X, type in 0, Control V, Control X, type in 0, Control V. All right. And hopefully, let's see. Now I have been having a couple issues of late where I'll put in these correct values and it shows up all funky. So I have to kind of uncheck segment scale compensate and then recheck it again. I don't know why. That's a new thing. It's a little bit buggy. I noticed it. I never had the issues previously. I don't know if it's a my update, but it is a thing. Okay, so now that we have done that, we are going to go to the next joint. So we are going to select our bind foot joint again, okay? And this time we're going to select our reverse lock foot joint. And we're going to do constrain orient. Same thing, it's going to orient it, and then we are going to delete our constraint. And where happened to this guy? There it is. And once again, we are going to copy these rotation values down to the joint orient values for our reverse lock foot joint. And if it's being crazy, we'll just unclick this and click this again. Okay, that looks good. So you notice the x-axis is pointing directly down towards the ball joint, which is what we want. And we have our z-axis pointing out and our y-axis pointing up, which is great. All right, so we have one more. We have a couple more. So we're going to select our ball, our bind ball joint. So that's this guy. Let me open this up so you can see this a little better. So we selected this guy. And then we're going to select our reverse lock toe joint. We're going to constrain orient. We are going to go to our toe joint and delete the constraint. We will then select our toe joint, and we are going to cut and paste the rotation values to the joint orient values for X, Y, and Z. And remember, that's Control X and then Control V. And then if it looks funky Cole Medina, just uncheck segment scale compensate and recheck it again. Okay, heel joint's going to be a tiny bit easier. We're going to select a reverse lock heel joint. We're going to try to. What we need to do is we need to rotate our y-axis here. So if you click in your joint orient y in your attribute editor and control middle mouse drag, you can actually rotate or joint orient the joint without actually putting any rotation values on there. So we want this pointing directly to our foot. Sorry. Let's see what -100 is. And you can always go to top view and hit F to really look and see. So this is like all kind of cuckoo bananas. I think -90 is probably what we need to do. That's better. I feel like, well, maybe it is -100 because really we're pointing it towards there. So I'm going to, oopsie. Yeah, there we go. I'm then going to go here and really make sure, you can always hit F to really make sure it's pointing in the right direction. So that looks pretty good. You can always put a whole number if you want. Like if you're like, I don't like -92.4, you could do -92, you could do -92.5. You could do -93. It's up to you. Every rig is going to be a little bit different, so you need to really look and see what direction the X needs to be pointing, and that means it needs to be pointing towards the ball joints. If it is not pointing towards the ball joints, you have an issue. Okay. All right, so now we need to parent these guys together. So we're actually going to start with our reverse lock foot joint, and we're going to parent it to as follows. So let's select our foot joint, and then we're going to select the reverse lock ball joint, hit P to parent. Then we're going to select our reverse lock ball joint, okay, and press our reverse lock toe joint, P to parent, and then we're going to select our toe joint, shift select our heel joint, and hit P to parent. So now we have something that looks like this, and I'm going to Control S to save this. And lastly, in this video, we are going to mirror our joints so that we don't have to do this on the other side completely from scratch. But before I actually do that, I'm going to select hierarchy, which is right here. You can also go to select hierarchy, and I'm going to turn off my local rotation axes, my LRAs. And then I'm going to select my heel. I'm going to go to skeleton mirror joints options box. It's going to mirror across in the YC. I'm going to search for underscore L underscore and replace with underscore R underscore. And voila, we have mirrored it and it looks good. All right, in the next lesson, we are going to constrain these joints.